This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The UN says over 100 ex-peacekeepers from Ethiopia are seeking asylum in Sudan. In Jerusalem, clashes continue for a fourth day between Palestinians and Israeli police. And 27 Nigerian kidnapped students reunited with their parents. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe. Let's have a look at other stories coming up this hour. Zimbabwe to increase local medicine production from under 20% to 60% in 5 years. And in sports, decorated Tunisian team steps up preparations as Tokyo 2020 Paralympics Games loom. The African Union Peace and Security Council are considering possible sanctions against the Chadian military regime. The members meeting today in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, will decide whether to make Chad's situation an exception and support its transitional process. AU experts deployed earlier in Chad argue that the country is an essential player against terrorism in Africa and that it is fragile. Some countries, however, want the AU to suspend Chad, calling its regime a military. The meeting comes as Chadian army claims victory against northern rebels after weeks-long battle. The transitional military authorities have previously said they have defeated the rebels, only for fighting to continue. The rebel group Front for Change and Concord crossed from Libya in April to take a stand against the late President Deby. President Deby was killed in April in a battlefield between Chadian soldiers and the rebels.
As you would have been aware, rebels have infiltrated our territory and we have responded with appropriate military action. We brought back war prisoners and their gear. We cleaned up all the areas where they infiltrated, and I can guarantee that the whole territory is secured. We ask the people to return to the normal occupation and enjoy regained peace. Our country is secured, thanks to God.
In a show of force, armed militiamen briefly took over a hotel in the Libyan capital of Tripoli that serves as headquarters for the interim government, officials said Saturday. Friday's development came after the three-member presidential council earlier this week appointed a new chief of the intelligence agency, Libya's version of the CIA. The militias, which control Tripoli, were apparently unhappy with the choice of Hussein Khalifa as the new spy chief. Presidential Council spokeswoman Najwa Weber said no one was hurt in the takeover of Hotel Corinthia in the heart of Tripoli. The hotel was mostly empty on Friday, the Muslim weekend. After a while, the militias left the hotel, according to an official at the Interior Ministry who spoke on condition of anonymity under regulations. Khalifa and the militia leaders were not immediately available for comment on Saturday. All right, so let's get more now from Adel Mahou, is live for us in Cairo. So Adel, that incident right there illustrates the risks that the unity government is facing. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, basically, in Tripoli, there's a hotel there called Corinthia. It's one of the prominent locations that the Presidency Council, which is a group of 3 members of Libyan politicians that are acting in the place of a president for the country during the transition, they meet there on a regular basis. And at night, some militia groups went in with 4x4 vehicles and some arms, and they tried to forcefully enter the hotel in an attempt to sit and talk with the Presidency Council members. This forceful entry happened, but no meeting occurred. There have been contradicting reports about whether they've entered the hotel with their arms or just forcefully entered without any arms in terms to sit peacefully with the members of the Presidency Council in terms to give them some demands and object to some decisions that the Presidency Council took in recent days.
Right, so we know the head of the Presidency Council's office, Mohammed Al-Mabrouk, has suggested that he will meet with the groups involved. What more do we know about that?
So basically, as I told you, the main purpose of this display of force around the hotel and the attempt to enter by one of the Western-based militias is that they were objecting to some decisions announced lately by the Presidency Council, specifically the appointment of a new chief of Libyan Intelligence Bureau, Mohammed Al-Ayib. Mohammed Al-Ayib is considered to be one of Muammar al-Qaddafi's strong and influential politicians and security personnel. His appointment as the head of an intelligence bureau in Libya is quite a blow to the Western militia specifically, who are in a very spark of tension at its height, basically, with any figure that represents al-Qaddafi, as well as former military generals from al-Qaddafi regime. So his appointment comes as a shock to them. It comes as, from the Presidency Council perspective, as a continuation for Libya's effort to counter terrorism and extremist movements. Now, the Presidency Council is formed of 3 Libyan politicians from the east, west, and south of Libya, representing the 3 regions. And the appointment of Al-Ayib as the head of intelligence bureau comes as a prominent step and a unanimous decision by the 3 figures. And therefore, their objection comes trying to reverse that and keep the previous chief of intelligence in place. They also come to object and asking for the to submit or to fire, to sack the foreign minister of Libya after she bluntly asked for Turkish and militias to be disarmed and Turkish troops to withdraw, foreign troops to be withdrawn from Libya. So this is the stance that has forced them, irritated these militias group, and tried to sit with them. And this is actually why, as you've mentioned, that the head of the Presidency Council's office is trying to arrange for talks so that no such instance of force be used at a time that Libya is quite fragile in terms of its ceasefire and trying to maintain stability as much as possible.
All right, Adel, we appreciate that update. Thank you very much for joining us. Adel Mahri live in Cairo. Now, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church Patriarch says a genocide has been committed in the country's Tigray region. The head of the church, who is also an ethnic Tigray, has in his recorded message said that deliberate crimes were committed by government forces targeting civilians. Here's CGTN's Groom Chala with that story.
For many, both within and outside of the country, the message of the Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, Abuna Matthias, came out as a shocker. The Patriarch said, and I quote, "For quite some time and across the country, so many atrocities and killings have been seen. But there is nothing that much crimes being committed in Tigray," end of quote. Abuna Matthias, who is also an ethnic Tigray, complained that he was time and again stopped by authorities from voicing his concerns and was deeply saddened by what he called the genocide in Tigray. Some officials we spoke to said they are unhappy with the remarks made by the head of the largest church in Ethiopia. They said his comments were not only full of accusations but were also divisive. So far, there has been no official response from the government of Ethiopia to the comments. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government has said time and again that it is committed to any independent investigation in Tigray and is addressing both the humanitarian and human rights situations in the region. Grumtala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Meanwhile, the United Nations says more than 100 former peacekeepers from Ethiopia do not want to return home out of fear of persecution. The peacekeepers are from the conflict-hit region of Tigray. They were part of a recently closed UN mission in Darfur. They now have sought international protection and applied for asylum in Sudan. In February, another group of Ethiopian peacekeepers in South Sudan, who are also from Tigray, refused to go home, saying they feared persecution. All right, so let's discuss this further. We are joined by Dr. Hassan Hanenje, the director of the Horn Institute. He joins us via Zoom from Nairobi. Dr. Hanenje, thank you very much for joining us. So this is quite unprecedented. From peacekeepers from Ethiopia, do we know of any such previous cases?
It's unprecedented but not surprising. Now, there is nothing that we know, especially in recent UN peacekeeping missions, that took place to this magnitude. But given what has been happening, especially the recent attempts to purge the military of the Tigray forces, this move was expected in many respects.
So what options are there, especially for the United Nations, to defuse the situation?
Right now, United Nations doesn't have mechanisms established to be able to deal with such situations because, as you mentioned, this situation again is unprecedented. However, it can appeal to the Ethiopian government to stop this practice because it's going to greatly affect the morale of the service, but also curtail UN missions, elsewhere. And since Ethiopia is one of the largest troop contributing countries on the continent, it is in their interest, of course, to be able to change that policy. And so what the UN can do in the immediate is to use the tools at its disposal diplomatically or through the Security Council to appeal to the government to stop this policy, which of course is going to be harmful to peacekeeping missions in the region and elsewhere in the world.
And you took me right into my next question, Dr. Hanenje. What are the implications on other Tigray peacekeepers in other UN missions?
I do not think it's going to be inspiring or a morale booster if they of the knowledge that they may be purged anytime. And so this critically is going to affect, and I'm sure it's already affecting the mission the AMISOM mission in Somalia when it comes to the Ethiopian contingent and elsewhere on the continent. But also Ethiopia, which has enjoyed a lot of privileges to do with the UN peacekeeping mission, is going to suffer from credibility. And so it's going to be unable for Ethiopia perhaps to credibly be able to contribute to peacekeeping missions if there is a sense that some of its citizens or its forces may be purged because of political reasons. And so those are kind of the immediate implications that they're going to have. But I think in long-term implications is the continent may lack the capacity to be able to deploy forces, especially when it's arriving, especially when these forces are politicized from the source countries. And so the UN may have to establish perhaps an independent control and command structure that is outside the national policy of the sending countries. Because in the absence of that, then we're likely to see this happen perhaps a few more times before a policy framework is put in place.
All right, Dr. Hassan Hanenje, we appreciate those insights. Thank you very much for your time. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has dissolved parliament, opening the way for lawmakers from opposing sides of the country's civil war to be appointed under a 2018 peace accord. President Kiir's decision was announced on public television Saturday evening, but no date was given as to when the new parliament will begin working. The setting up of a new legislative body was part of an accord signed in September 2018 between Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar for years on opposition sides during the 5-year civil war that left 380,000 people dead and 4 million displaced. Activists and civil society groups welcomed the dissolution of parliament, saying it was long overdue, but also expressing distrust. It is a welcome development, and we hope that the dissolution also opens the way to a lengthy process towards reconstituting the parliament. That is a quote from this activist. So let's get more details now from CGTN's Patrick Oyet. He joins us now for more from Juba. Patrick, what does the dissolution of parliament mean?
Yeah, Peninah, the dissolution of parliament means that now South Sudan is moving closer to actually a complete formation of a unity government according to the 2018 peace agreement. Of course, the formation of this unity government started a year ago, but the parliament was not formed, and all parliament comprising of 400 members was still in place. It was comprising of majorly members from President Salva Kiir's party, and then a few opposition political parties that were also affiliated to President Salva Kiir's party. Now, the dissolution means the next step may be now formation of a new parliament. Many political analysts, many civil society organizations have been calling for this parliament to be dissolved long time ago. It didn't happen, but finally it has happened. It means now the peace process has moved at least a step forward. And also this parliament is not only at the national level. All the 10 states of South Sudan have also parliament. So this will also move the process now forward to ensure that a new parliament perhaps is formed both at the national level and at the state level, Peninah.
All right, Patrick, thank you very much for that. Patrick Oyet live for us in Juba. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break. Coming up. In Jerusalem, clashes continue for a fourth day between Palestinians and Israeli police. And 27 Nigerian kidnapped students reunited with their parents.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis,
Syria.
Juba, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. The UN Secretary General has urged Israeli security forces to show restraint in occupied East Jerusalem. He also expressed deep concern about Israel's plan to expel Palestinian families from their homes in the city's Sheikh Jarrah district. Israel responded to international criticism of police violence by releasing video of Palestinians throwing rocks at police in riot gear at the Al-Aqsa Mosque and law enforcement firing stun grenades. The mosque has been a focal point for violence in recent weeks. Tensions have intensified today as Israel marks Jerusalem Day, a war commemoration marking the Israeli capture of the eastern part of the city in 1967. India continues to see surging numbers of new coronavirus cases and deaths. The country is reporting more than 366,000 new cases and over 3,700 deaths on Monday, and it's now recruiting former army doctors to assist hospitals battling under the strain of the second wave. The country is still facing major medical shortages, especially oxygen. The capital, Delhi, has extended lockdown measures for another week. That includes the suspension of metro services, a situation that has outraged many who rely on public transportation.
We will not be able to travel on the metro for our work, and we will face a lot of problems. Why is the government doing this? What is the reason? This should not obstruct what is going on. Why are the metro services being suspended due to the coronavirus? People should control themselves and not step out.
I work at a hospital. I'm going for my evening shift now. And how will I return to my home at night? I do not have enough money to travel in cabs.
Meanwhile, an editorial published in the peer-reviewed journal The Lancet has slammed Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's handling of the pandemic. It says deaths in the country could reach 1 million by August. The number is currently at about 242,000. If this happens, The Lancet said the Modi government would be responsible for presiding over a self-inflicted national catastrophe. It criticized Modi for squandering early successes and ignoring warnings of a second wave. Libya's 5+5 military commission has taken the first step to create a joint military task force. The mission of the task force will be to secure the country's main coastal road and maintain security in the buffer zone in central Libya. The 5+5 military commission is a UN-sponsored negotiation track that includes military leaders representing rival forces. Meanwhile, Egypt is expecting a boost in the supply of its COVID-19 vaccines this month. The Egyptian cabinet says it is expecting a huge consignment of jabs to arrive this month. Since January, the nation has officially announced receiving 2.5 million doses of Sinopharm and AstraZeneca vaccines. Here's Adel Mahri with more on that.
Since it began receiving COVID-19 vaccines earlier this year, Egypt announced acquiring 2.5 million doses from China's Sinopharm and AstraZeneca. The country says that this month it is expecting to get nearly 5 million vaccines, including the country's first shipment from Sinovac.
Relying on a specific vaccine makes the country vulnerable. If there's any shortage in that kind of vaccine, or if a company is pressed to deliver, that would interrupt the supply of vaccines. This is why Egypt is purchasing 3 different kinds of vaccines and is seeking more.
Health Ministry officials say 1.3 million citizens have been vaccinated so far. That means the nation's official stock of COVID-19 vaccines is down to half. In a move to prepare for the days ahead, Egypt has begun preparations to manufacture two kinds of vaccines, Russia's Sputnik V and Sinovac from China.
Egypt signed an agreement to manufacture that vaccine and will soon begin the process. It's a very important step that will help in allocating vaccines. Egypt plans to produce 40 to 60 million doses of the Chinese Sinovac vaccine annually. That will create an abundance of vaccines in the coming period. The final agreement for manufacturing Sputnik V is yet to be signed.
More than 1 million Egyptians registered and are still waiting for their COVID-19 vaccine appointment. Delays in shipments lead to shrinkage in Egypt's stock of the jab. Meanwhile, scores more register every day. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
The Secretary General of South Africa's African National Congress, or the ANC, has this weekend been booted out of a meeting of the party's top officials. This comes as the party continues to be engaged in an open power struggle in the governing party. He attended the meeting in defiance of his suspension after being charged with corruption. CGTN's Yulisan Jamila has more.
The governing ANC is dealing with a deeply divided and factional organization. Even the top six of the leadership is evidently at loggerheads. In a bid to fight entrenched corruption in the governing party, over a month ago, President Cyril Ramaphosa warned that any ANC members and leaders facing corruption charges would also face suspension if they did not step aside or leave their posts within 30 days. One of those facing corruption charges is the party's Secretary General, Ace Magashule. Magashule refused to step aside after the stipulated days, denying the corruption allegations. He was then suspended. In defiance, Magashule hit back and said he had instead suspended President Ramaphosa. Magashule then further forced his way into a virtual meeting of the National Executive Committee of the ANC despite his suspension. He was then booted out. Many observers say the party is in full crisis mode.
It's not a new crisis, it's just in the continuum of crisis that the ANC has found itself in. As you would know, organizations are always faced with the difficult question as to whether or not they acted too late. And I think that's the biggest test the ANC is facing. Did they let go of principle for so long that now that they're trying to restore, renew, and rebuild the organization anew, it might just be that it might be the undoing of the organization simply because they've left it too late to act.
Ngudi, however, believes that the party will likely survive this standoff.
Look, the ANC will survive the crisis, whether it will make it out of this crisis intact or highly divided with a faction that may eventually find itself opting to, leave the ANC and form a new organization is something that has to be seen. Whenever there has been a moment like this one of highly, decorated leaders of the organization being suspended or expelled and so on, it tends to follow that they want to go and find a political home elsewhere.
The ANC governing alliance partners have expressed deep concern about the ongoing crisis in the party.
The issue is whether the ANC will be able to overcome the situation. And our answer is that with the overwhelming support of its members who want the ANC to overcome the situation, with the overwhelming support of the alliance partners, because we want the ANC to overcome the situation, and with the overwhelming support of members of the public who are not members of the ANC, but when we go to the ballot, they vote for the ANC. With their support, the ANC will be able to overcome the situation.
Ace Magashule is one of the ANC's top 6 officials. He also runs day-to-day affairs in the party. Yulisan Jamila for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
27 Nigerian college students who were freed by their abductors recently have now been reunited with their parents. gunmen kidnapped the students of the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization from school premises in March. The 37 students were held hostage for over 50 days. 10 of the students were initially released, while the kidnappers held on to the remaining students until last Thursday. Here is CGTN's Deji Badmas with more.
Shouts of joy rent the air as the 27 students were driven into the school where they were kidnapped from over 50 days ago. One after the other, the students disembarked from the buses and marched into the school hall to meet with their parents, relatives and friends. Inside the packed hall, the joy was clear as the students finally reunited with their parents. It's a moment the parents had looked forward to for weeks, and they could not hold back their joy as it unfolded.
I am overjoyed. My daughter was held in the forest for 56 days, and now she has come back alive. I just can't thank God enough. I also thank all those who put in the effort to ensure the students were released from captivity. I thank God and I thank everyone.
The release of the students was facilitated by a controversial Islamic cleric in the state after the government refused to pay a ransom of over $1 million which the kidnappers had demanded. The freed students say they went through a lot of torture in captivity.
It wasn't easy at all. First, so many challenges, no food. We drink dirty water. We don't even take our baths, not even brush. We feed on mangoes at times, that's if they want to. It has not been easy. Although the experience, it has not been easy. There's hell. Just thank God that God has finally heard our prayer and bring us out of that mess.
I have hope that I'm going to come back, but sometimes I'll say, God, is it how my life will end? I cannot suffer this kind of suffering, but I thank God. It's time for us to live.
I was among the first batch that were released on the 5th of April. We really experienced a lot, seriously. Being there is not easy, it's not nice, seriously. We really suffered there. The water that we used to drink alone, God, this is something else. So we really thank God, we appreciate God for saving our lives.
Most of the parents say their children will not be coming back to school anytime soon until they are sure adequate security arrangements are in place to guarantee their safety. And as this sad chapter closes, attention has now fully shifted to an unspecified number of students of a private university also in the same state who were kidnapped last month. Their captors have killed 5 of them, threatening to kill the remaining hostages if their ransom demands are not met. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Kaduna, Nigeria.
You're watching Africa Live. We're taking a quick break. Coming up in business news. Zimbabwe to increase local medicine production from under 20% to 60% in 5 years. And Egypt to build the largest petrochemicals plant in the region in the Red Sea Economic Zone.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Zimbabwe has approved a 5-year strategy to scale up local manufacturing of pharmaceutical drugs. The government is targeting to raise local production capacity to 60% by 2025. Currently, about 80% of drugs available in the country are imported through private pharmacies or health development partners. CGTN's Peninah Karibe has the details.
George Chagonda has come to the Epilepsy Support Foundation to collect a monthly batch of free drugs for his teenage son who suffers from epileptic seizures. The donated medication is often inadequate.
Sometimes I can only get one type of medication, yet my son needs 2 types. So I have to try to find the other one myself. Pharmacies are now selling in US dollars, which makes them harder to afford.
The bulk of medicines available in Zimbabwe are imported because local production has been progressively whittled down by years of economic distress.
Currently, I think about 20% of the national drug requirements are being met by local industries. But again, they are still reeling.
That may change with the implementation of an ambitious pharmaceutical development strategy, which will be financed by a $45 million revolving fund that manufacturers can tap into.
What the industry is asking for is long-term funding, 5 to 10 years, at concessionary interest rates, which is payable over a period of 5 to 10 years. And it is very important to have that money available because the funding that is available from commercial banks is short-term and the interest rates of about 40% and above. And that is not conducive for any meaningful investment. So what we're asking for is what has been done, for example, in agriculture, what has been done in mining, and have the same facility available for the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry.
Beyond capitalizing the drug makers, the strategy also aims to increase the availability of critical raw materials.
It means the millers have to be capacitated and equipped to actually start making cornstarch, which is pharmaceutical grade. Same thing with our sugar refineries. They actually need to refine the sugar to pharmaceutical grade. So it's the feeder industries and those who feed into this into the raw material supply will need to ramp up their strategies and to actually start thinking that we are working at pharmaceutical production.
Linkages with local universities will be created to undertake research and development that will ensure the industry keeps up with medical advancements. Restoring Zimbabwe's pharmaceutical production capacity is not only good for the economy, it's also a public health imperative that will help the country manage disease burdens, including HIV/AIDS, malaria, and increasingly prevalent non-communicable diseases. Peninah Karibe, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Egypt has signed a $7.5 billion contract to construct one of the largest petrochemicals complexes in Africa and the Middle East region. Authorities in Cairo said the complex will be built by the state-owned Red Sea National Refining and Petrochemicals Company and will be located in the Suez Canal Economic Zone. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has more in this report.
The project, over 3.56 million square meters, is meant to meet the needs for petroleum products. Cairo has been encouraged to go ahead after its huge natural gas discoveries in the last few years.
This industry is based on the raw material extracted from natural gas. We used to import petroleum products before, but after big discoveries such as the Zor gas field and many other fields, natural gas has become abundant. So we thought of putting added value to this raw material by establishing petrochemical plants. Ethylene, polyethylene, polypropylene, butane, benzene are to be produced. These products are in demand worldwide and could be used in various industries, whether large or medium enterprises.
The new factory will also help bridge the gap between producing and consuming petroleum products in Egypt. The North African country spends approximately $9.5 billion per year pre-COVID to import these chemicals.
The petrochemicals complex will provide about 4 million tons of added value petroleum products annually. We consume about 3.1 million tons a year. This means we will benefit first by saving a huge import bill and being self-sufficient. Secondly, we will export the surplus to create revenue that will exceed $8 billion a year. We're talking about this complex alone, but we're building another petrochemicals factory in Alamein, North Coast, that will produce another 1 million tons a year.
It will also create about 17,000 direct and indirect job opportunities. Egypt had earlier signed 9 deals with international firms worth $1 billion for oil and gas exploration in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. The completion date of the petrochemicals complex has not been announced yet. However, all these projects are meant to elevate the North African country to become a main energy hub in the region. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Ethiopia has begun promoting its workforce to international companies as an alternative to outsourcing jobs to countries like India. The government initiative puts digital employment at the heart of its job strategy and represents a new trend in Africa, marketing its young, digitally savvy job seekers to multinational corporations looking for cheaper labor abroad. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi tells us more from Addis Ababa.
As the evening sets in Addis Ababa, this team starts to work. Their schedule is dictated by time zones in America and Singapore because that is where most of their clients are based.
We're hiring almost every single day, and the other tech companies I know about are doing the same. So we're increasing quickly. So I think if any industry can provide a vast amount of jobs for the youth, it's the tech industry.
Young people are the driving force behind this company of some 100 people.
Pretty much everyone we hire is straight out of university. So we usually hire them as interns, and the ones who do the best, which is pretty much all of them, are very, very capable. We ended up taking them, hiring them, we do training for them, and then within a few months they're able to handle the client workload.
Such digital initiatives are being promoted by the Ethiopian Jobs Creation Commission, which wants more Ethiopians to set up such companies so as to ease the unemployment burden of about 2 million people.
That's a massive undertaking, right? If you as a country believe that, even working with the private sector and all of those things, you can do those things with a magic bullet, it's a bit difficult. So that's why we're really trying to inject technology and entrepreneurship. Technology, why? Because it kind of gives you that inflection point, so that you're not looking at things linearly in terms of jobs creation.
The commission set up by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in 2018 to address growing unemployment is giving itself a 6-month target to support willing citizens to open businesses and employ others. The campaign is called Enkopa, which in Amharic means gold ore.
We're trying to start a trend so that slowly you have other financial instruments who are looking at this and say, hey, this is actually beneficial, right? And so why don't we also invest in the PE aspect, in the VC, like the pure VC aspect, right? Because here it's really a blended finance type of instrument. We're going to have also a grant facility for de-risking, and we'll have also even maybe a concessional loan facility. So it's not easy. It's not easy to address these issues, these challenges, because you're looking at a very specific type of challenges that startups are going through. But we have to start somewhere.
But internet penetration, a major requirement for such digital enterprises, remains low at about only 20%. The government is looking at the liberalization of its telecom sector as part of the solution to the less internet penetration. It is targeting to license 3 international companies to be part of the sector, where Ethio Telecom, a state-owned company, has enjoyed monopoly for decades. Companies like MMCY that have already penetrated the international market say daily requests for Ethiopian software developers are pouring in, and they believe there is more than enough opportunity for Ethiopian businesses to grow. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
You're watching Africa Live. There's plenty more coming up, including this. Tunisian TV series highlights the plight of illegal migrants.
Join us in global business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
A new Tunisian TV series called Harga, which means irregular migration in North African dialects, has attracted millions of viewers. The show aired during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan and shed light on the issue of irregular migration from Tunisia and Africa to Italy.
Harga depicts the stories of men, women and children, as well as elderly people of all origins and nationalities who risk their lives to reach European shores. These irregular migrants who resort to services provided by profit-seeking smugglers could face death, deportation, prison or human trafficking.
We're trying to answer the following question. Why do people resort to irregular migration? Is it a search for better economic and social conditions? Is it because people no longer belong to their homeland? Is it an identity crisis? Is the aftermath of the sea crossing and risky journey an easy road to paradise, or a mere illusion which leads to death at sea or inhumane treatment and humiliation? This reality makes people regret, and there's no turning back.
Director Lesad Lousleti says fiction and reality intertwine in the 20-episode TV series. Harga tells the story of irregular migrants. It is also a tribute to the families who lost their sons or daughters in the Mediterranean.
The families of lost migrants are present in this series as actors. The best actors cannot feel what the parents are feeling. This work is a mixture and combination of documentary and fiction at the level of the story and the technique.
In 2017, Fathiya's son attempted to cross the Mediterranean to reach the Italian island of Lampedusa. The boat carrying the young man and dozens of irregular migrants had broken down. All people on board the makeshift vessel were reported missing.
I want my son back. I don't feel alive since he crossed the sea. I want to know his whereabouts. I'm sick. I don't sleep at night. I want my son back. The government and the whole world should listen to me and bring him back.
Tunisian, Libyan, Algerian, Moroccan and Sub-Saharan actors, as well as actors from Italy, are the main characters in Harga. The series will be available in different languages and on several streaming services in the next few months. According to the International Organization for Migration, hundreds of deaths are recorded each year on the main Mediterranean sea routes to Europe. Harga, the Ramadan TV series, shows the danger of irregular migration and explains the root causes of this international phenomenon. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Nigeria joins over 50 countries to commemorate Mother's Day this year. The tradition, which dates back to ancient Greece, celebrates the roles and contributions of mothers in society. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam brings us a story of how this day is celebrated in Nigeria.
Wife and mother of three, Udwak Afelumo, begins her day in a celebratory mood in her local church. Juggling her job as a physiotherapist and other roles, including women leader and counselor, is quite daunting. Playing all these roles while mothering not only her biological children but also many others is what makes her womanhood an experience she's thankful for.
The privilege of being responsible for another human being, and seeing them move from, babyhood, seeing them be so helpless and dependent to a part of life where they are having conversations with you, and they have a mind of their own, they have opinions on issues, to a point where you see them having their own families. I think it's an awesome privilege. It's the one day that it's just nice to be appreciated for.
Now Uduak's efforts are being rewarded. Her family spares nothing to celebrate and appreciate her as their mother, including treating her to a nice meal at a restaurant.
What I admire most about my mom is that she's hardworking, she's very kind and caring. She's such a wonderful person, and she always tries to be there for not only me, but like her friends, her co-workers.
She's a go-to person, for them. And yeah, I know she's my wife, but then some of the mothering too gets to me, as in just being there and extending care, counsel, and just ensuring that we are all fine.
Nigeria, like most countries around the globe, celebrates Mother's Day. The annual event is held every second Sunday of the month of May. Being a mother in a contemporary Nigerian society comes with its pressures, especially for women who wear extra hats of wife, daughter, employer, professional, and much more. But for Uduak and many like her, they work extra hard to find that balance. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
And coming up in sports.